Department of National Defense or DND. Introduction. Long before the official creation of the Defense Department in 1939 by President Manuel Luis Quezon, the country has had a semblance of a defense organization dating back to the pre-Spanish period, when our barangays had an organization of able-bodied men of the village charged with the protection of the community from hostile forces. This organization was the forerunner of what we now call our armed forces. In the early days of the Katipunan, Andres Bonifacio, as Supremo of the Revolutionary Society, had picked Teodoro Plata, his brother-in-law, as his Secretary of War. When Emilio Aguinaldo was elected president in the Tejeros Convention on March 22, 1897, and succeeded Bonifacio as a leader of the Katipunan. Emilio Riddio de Dios was also elected as Director of War. The war against Spain demonstrated for the first time the Filipino people's capability to organize an army to fight foreign colonial masters. Aguinaldo's two high-ranking military officers during the Spanish-Filipino War were Artemio Ricarte as Captain General and Mariano Llanera as Lieutenant General. Other officers of general rank included Vito Villarmino, Mariano Noriel, Pio del Pilar, Pascual Alvarez, Manuel Tino, Tomas Mascardo, Jose Salvador, and Pantaleon Garcia. The capture of Aguinaldo on March 23, 1901 at Palanan, Isabela told the death of a struggle by the Filipinos for independence against the powerful United States of America. History of the Department of National Defense. President Manuel L. Quezon, 1935 to 1944. On November 19, 1934, Senate President Manuel L. Quezon requested the U.S. Secretary of War to recommend amendment of an act passed on May 19, 1926, which provided for the detail of U.S. Army, Naval, and Marine Corps to assist the other American republics in military and naval matters, to make it equally applicable to the Philippines. The act was duly amended by the U.S. Congress, thereby authorizing a military mission to the Philippines, which Quezon immediately requested from the United States after his election as President of the Commonwealth of the Philippines. President Quezon enacted the following laws. Executive Order No. 2, Series of 1935, assuming command of military forces, thereby sending the signal that a Filipino chief executive had assumed the role of a commander-in-chief. That means the president is also the chief executive of the military forces. Executive Order No. 3, Series of 1935, appointing General Douglas MacArthur military advisor of the Commonwealth and creating the National Defense Council. Commonwealth Act No. 1. It established the Council of National Defense, with the President as the chairman. It is also put emphasis on the supremacy of civil authority over military force, to strengthen constitutional principles of democracy, to keep the armed forces subordinate to the civilian authority. Executive Order No. 11, Series of 1936, designating the Chief of Staff, transferring the Philippine Constabulary to the Army of the Philippines. That means from civilian police, they become Army of the Philippines. Commonwealth Act No. 343, an act to abolish the state police force, to reorganize the Philippines Constabulary into a national police force, and providing funds therefore. So from the civilian police, they changed it to the National Police Force. Executive Order No. 230, Series of 1939, organizing the Department of National Defense. Nakita ni President Quezon na hindi na epektibo yung mga pamamaraan ni Douglas MacArthur, gumawa siya ng isang executive order para i-reorganize ang Department of Defense. At yun nga ang Executive Order No. 230, Series of 1939. Commonwealth Act No. 671, which authorized the President to reorganize the government as necessary and conferred legislative powers for the duration of the national emergency. This is the time when the Japanese bombed the Pearl Harbor. President Jose P. Laurel, 1943 to 1945, did not have its own defense department because on this time, Japanese have overruled the Philippines, and President Jose P. Laurel is also known as the puppet president. President Sergio Osmeña, 1944 to 1946, enacted the following laws. Executive Order Number 15W Series of 1944, which reorganized the government on February 27, 1945. MacArthur formally turned over the powers and functions of the government to President Sergio Osmeña. Tinupad ni MacArthur ang pangako niyang I shall return at ibinigay ang kapangyarihan ng gobyerno sa presidente ng Pilipinas na noon ay si Sergio Osmeña. Executive Order Number 27, Series of 1945, reorganizing, expanding the cabinet, and thereby re-establishing the Department of National Defense, with Thomas Cabili as the new Secretary of Defense. The department oversaw the promotion of peace and security throughout the liberated areas of the country. It also performed the additional task of supervising police activities and assisting in the reorganization of all civil police forces. Sa panahong ito, unti-unti nang nagsaayos ang gobyerno at unti-unti na ding naibabalik ang kapayapaan at seguridad ng ating bansa. President Manuel Rojas, 1946 to 1948, the United States finally recognized Philippine independence on July 4, 1946, with the inauguration of the Third Republic and its first president, Manuel Rojas. President Rojas enacted Executive Order Number 94 Series of 1947 in order to reinforce the defenses of the country against threats from within and without. The DND was charged with the duty of supervising the overall defense program of the country, with its reaffirmed control over the armed forces of the Philippines. And armed forces of the Philippines become part of the Department of National Defense. President Elpidio Quirino, 1948 to 1953. On August 31, 1950, President Elpidio Quirino appointed a new Secretary of Defense, Ramon Magsaysay, to tackle the hook problem. Magsaysay developed a plan to both attack and attract the hooks. He lobbied Congress to increase its appropriation of budget for the Defense Department from 57,247,192,246, which was approved for the fiscal year 1952 to 1953. Magsaysay's efforts were applauded and copied in other parts of the world. The department achievement under Magsaysay was said to be Asia's first victory against internal communism. President Ramon Magsaysay, 1953 to 1957. In the presidential elections held on November 10, former Defense Minister Ramon Magsaysay won a decisive victory over the incumbent Quirino, and because of his vigorous conduct of the campaign against the hooks. Sa malaking dahilan ng pagkapanalo ni President Magsaysay laban kay Quirino ay nang mapasuko niya ang leader ng hook balahap na si Luis Tarok. Ngunit hindi din nagtagal ang pamumuno ni Magsaysay dahil siya ay namatay sa isang aksidente. President Carlos P. Garcia, 1957 to 1961. No laws passed because he focuses in different departments. President Diosdado Macapagal, 1961 to 1965. No laws passed because he focuses in different departments. President Ferdinand E. Marcos, 1965 to 1986. Under martial law, with the promulgation of the 1973 Constitution, the DND was reorganized as the Ministry of Defense. During this time, Defense was the most powerful ministry in the executive branch. Marcos, as dictator, was vested with powers to govern the nation and direct the operation of the entire government, including all its agencies and instrumentalities. President Corazon Aquino, 1986 to 1992. The assassination of Senator Benigno S. Aquino Jr. on August 21, 1983, set the precedent for a peaceful revolution EDSA. On February 1986, one of the EDSA revolution's pivotal moments was when Defense Minister Enrile, together with AFP Vice Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Fidel B. Ramos, defected on February 22, 1986. They withdrew their support from President Marcos and asked him to step down from office. The success of EDSA made the peaceful transition of power possible. President Corazon C. Aquino was elected president and a major clean-up of the Ministry of Defense and the military began. The Defense Department from 1987 to the present. On July 25, 1987, President Corazon Aquino, the newly elected, issued the Administrative Code of 1987 or Executive Order number 292, series of 1987, giving executive supervision of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Office of Civil Defense, the Philippine Veterans Office, the National Defense College of the Philippines, and the Government Arsenal, to the reinstituted Department of National Defense. Today, the department continues to fulfill its mandate to serve and protect the Filipino people, to protect the state and to ensure security and peace, where the sovereignty of the Philippines is present. The Department of National Defense, or Kagawaran ng Tanggulang Pangbansa, is the executive department of the Philippine government, responsible for guarding against external and internal threats to peace and security in the country. The Department of National Defense exercises executive supervision over the Armed Forces of the Philippines or the AFP, the Office of Civil Defense or the OCD, the Philippine Veteran Affairs Office or the PBAO, the National Defense College of the Philippines or the NDCP, the Government Arsenal or the GA, and Veteran Memorial Medical Center or the VMMC. It is also responsible for disaster preparation and management in the country. Its mandate is to maximize its effectiveness for guarding against external and internal threats to national peace and security, promote the welfare of soldiers and veterans, and provide support for social and economic development. Its functions are as follows. It is tasked with the responsibility of providing the necessary protection of the state against external and internal threats, directing, planning, and supervising the National Defense Program, maintaining law and order throughout the country, and performing other functions as may be provided for by law. It exercises executive supervision over the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP, the Government Arsenal or GA, the Office of Civil Defense or OCD, the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office or PBAO, and the National Defense College of the Philippines or NDCP. It is charged with the duty of supervising the National Defense Program of the country. It also has responsibility for overseeing field operations to ensure the judicious and effective implementations of national defense and security program. Its mission is to guard against external and internal threats to national peace and security, promote the welfare of soldiers, veterans, and their families in order to attain national security, uphold sovereignty and territorial integrity, support socio-economic development and political stability. Its vision is to ensure a strategic partner of the international community, capable and responsive, professional and competent, effective and efficient in meeting external and internal challenges to national security and domestic stability, as well as contributing to the social and economic development of the Philippines. Attached bureaus and agencies: Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP, Office of Civil Defense or OCD, Philippine Veterans Affairs Office or PBAO, National Defense College of the Philippines or NDCP, Government Arsenal. Role of the PNP. The law enforcement function to the Department of National Defense or DND is to support the Armed Forces of the Philippines in the internal and external security operations for the suppression of insurgency and other serious threats to national security.